important component in the administrative vision of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg was a seminary. As I said earlier, his son-in-law Kunze opened a seminarium in the city of Philadelphia in 1773, but that school had a very short life. It had to close its doors in 1776 when the British invaded Philadelphia. And that vision, that hope, remained a dream until 1864, when individuals again opened a seminary in the city of Philadelphia, first on 9th Street and then at its second location directly across from Franklin Square. And the building that is behind me is a photograph of the dormitory and the classrooms where individuals came to be instructed. And behind me are two of the first faculty in that institution, in the realization of Henry's dream of a seminary. To my extreme right is William Julius Mann, the fourth pastor of St. Michael's Zion, the church, the parish of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. There is William Julius Mann, and he is the individual in 1881 who began to ask family members to please turn over the journals and the correspondence that they had of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. He is the founder of the archives, and he is the one that starts to bring these important pieces of information here to a location in this school, the Lutheran Seminary. He is the first individual to sit down and write a comprehensive biography of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. And then to my immediate right is Charles Porterfield Krauth. He is the living testimony. He is a living testimony to the Lutheran witness in the Delaware Valley of service and scholarship. He is the provost at the University of Pennsylvania. He is the chair of the philosophy department at the University of Pennsylvania. And he comes over to this school opposite Franklin Square to teach theology. And when he dies, his widow gives to this school his collection of 15,000 volumes because she understood the importance of books in the raising up of leaders in Philadelphia, in the Lutheran Church. In the 1880s, it was clear that our location of a seminary across from Franklin Square was no longer working. It was noisy, it was very dusty. And so the faculty sat down and considered some options, talking with the Ministerium of Pennsylvania, the organization that Henry Melchior Muhlenberg founded in 1748. They considered a number of locations and finally decided on the Gowan Estate here in Mount Airy. And so in 1888, they gave money, the ministerium gave money for the construction of a new building, a dormitory, where individuals could live, where classes could be held. And this was its administrative center, the Gowan Mansion that we know as Hagan Hall. And on October 4th, 1889, faculty, students, friends of the seminary came to this location to dedicate this institution in its new location to its mission of raising up leaders for the church. And on the third floor of the Gowan Mansion, that was the library, where all of the books of Charles Porterfield Krauth came to rest, where all of the journals that had been collected by William Julius Mann by Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, where his letters came to rest, where people could consult them, use them, learn from them, and continue the Lutheran witness in the Delaware Valley into an area that was industrializing and urbanizing and growing and accepting new immigrants from the other sides of the world. And then in the early years of the 20th century, the Krauth Memorial Library was constructed. And it was a fantastic building. Monies were donated by an individual from Pittsburgh, and this glorious building opened its doors in June of 1908. And the library of Charles Porterfield Krauth, the correspondence, the journals of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg came here into this building that was created to house our witness, to house our heritage, to house the important resources that we needed to train individuals for ministry. And in 1908, it was a technological wonder because it had glass floors. Because in 1908, the Krauth Memorial Library did not have electric lights. The lights were gas lights, and they would be lit in the evening. But during the day, those glass floors filtered the light that came through the skylights in the ceiling. And you could go down on a cloudy day into the basement, and there was enough light to see the title of the book on the spine. There was enough light to see its call number. And then you came into that glorious open rotunda that was flooded with daylight from all its huge windows. And you could sit down and you could commune with the voices of the past. You could train yourself for service in ministry. And so these glass floors were a technological wonder, and with its iron floor casing that held those pieces of glass, it was simultaneously fireproof. Fireproof and using natural daylight, a perfect wonder of the world for our seminary in 1908. Throughout our long witness in the Delaware Valley, throughout that long witness that began with an administrative vision of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, that materialized in a seminary in Center City, Philadelphia, that was continued when that seminary came out here to Mount Airy. In that long history of the Lutheran witness in the Delaware Valley, there has been one important component throughout, and that is the role of the book. Books played an important part in training, in maintaining the witness in the Delaware Valley. And Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, who was a lifelong reader, understood the value of books. And I, the librarian of the Krauth Memorial Library, inherited that vision and understanding of books. I have in my hand here a book that was owned by Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. This book was sent to him in 1753, and here on its free end paper, he inscribed his name and dated the day he got the book. This book belongeth to Henry Muhlenberg and his heirs, 1753. And Henry sat down and he devoured the information that was here on these pages, because it equipped him to be a better servant, to be a better leader of the people of God. And he was so committed to people and serving them that when he heard of a new recipe for a medicine that would help people who were suffering, he made note of it. And here on a free end paper, he wrote out a prescription, a medicine that he could create at home, that he wanted to remember, so that he could make for people who were sick, and he could bring them healing. And so he wrote out in his clear script this prescription, this formula, this recipe for a medicine in English, knowing full well that this was important. This would help him and aid him. This shows his commitment to ministry and to social ministry that we still perform today. I have in my hand here a very important book in the ministry of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. This was his German-English dictionary. And it is absolutely astonishing when I open this book. There across the title page is Henry's faithful inscription. This book belongeth to Henry Muhlenberg. But look at that grand and glorious illustration opposite the title page. It's the frontispiece. It is an exquisite engraving of George I, King of Great Britain and Ireland. This had special significance for Henry Melchior Muhlenberg because King George I of Great Britain and Ireland was simultaneously Duke Prince Elector of Hanover. This was his Lord. This was his sovereign. And every time Henry Melchior Muhlenberg opened this book, and he would have done it frequently when he was writing out a sermon in English, he reconnected. He reconnected with friends, with leaders, with individuals who were important in his life. Because Henry Melchior Muhlenberg knew from the first day he arrived in the city of brotherly love, November 25th, 1742, he could not do this alone. He needed to maintain connections. He needed to maintain connections. And when he opened this book, he reestablished a connection with a very important person in his life. And to touch this book, to see this image, to reconnect with Henry in this very special way, has a very special meaning for me, the librarian, the steward of this particular volume and that heritage of remaining connected, of allowing books to play their role in the formation of leaders for ministries of word and service and word and sacrament. We never lost that grand vision of Henry Melchior Muhlenberg. We always stayed connected in so many ways. We stayed connected with Europe. We stayed connected with other congregations. We stayed connected throughout because we realized we can never do this alone. We're never going to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We were a small, freestanding, independent theological library here in Mount Airy, but we had connections around the world. And Theodore Tappert mentioned that connection in his history of the seminary that I would like to share with you as I bring this segment to a close.